acquiescence to my claim of right. They have agreed that I have the right to do everything that I need to do in my existence to fulfill my sole mission on this planet. They've acquiesced to that. And that's why I'm here today. And that's why we're going around the country giving talks like this to tell people that the remedy is for and on behalf of the people. We are in the process of bringing together representative actions, first of all against the banksters, against the mortgage companies. We will soon, and this isn't going to go viral, because this information is for the people who need to hear it. We already have over 150 people who have come forward saying that they want to take part in representative actions against the mortgage companies. These are all injured parties who have been cheated by the banksters. So, we are filing representative actions in the very near future in every district registry right across the country on the same day at the same time, and we are standing up and saying no more fraud. If the state will not recognize this massive, all-encompassing fraud that's been committed for centuries by the banks, if they will choose not to enforce the laws that they created for their own benefit and supposedly for the benefit of the people, if they won't enforce it for the mortgagors, then we will convene a grand jury to decide whether or not state and crown interests are not compatible with this current justice system. And we declare it via a grand jury, provided they agree, null and void. And we step into the way our world and our community should be, which is what we'll be talking about in the next talk. Woo! Which is the Universal Community Trust. Now, I'm not going to digress into that now, because I want to express to you that this isn't just conjecture that I'm putting forward here. This is an ancient remedy of the people of this nation. What these people, the people behind the Bill of Rights, they're almost anonymous because they didn't want to be known. They weren't seeking glory, they were seeking redress. And they knew that if someone didn't do something, if a few good men and women didn't stand up and say no more to everybody, that this is what's happened and it's got to stop. The suffering's got to end. The illegal wars have got to stop. The troops have got to come back. They're not serving the people. They're serving corporate interests. It's got to stop. All of us, we can do something by standing up and saying no more. You're not ripping me off and you're not imposing your rules upon me because they're contrary to natural law. I do not recognise your authority, and you have no legal or lawful recourse to impose any of your sanctions upon me. Despite all of these things that I'm saying. And I've been saying them for quite a while now. I put out an awful lot of information on a website called freetheplanet.net. Well, I put out all the information on there. And every state agency, from the bottom down, knows where I am. Nothing has happened, except every single issue I had with the state is gone, evaporated. They want nothing to do with me. It's all been settled administratively. I don't have any corporations chasing me. I don't have any state agents chasing me. It's been like that for over a year. I did what they did as an individual, standing up and reclaiming my sovereignty. Everybody is equal, and that's it. There is no discussion. But we're born into a system where we acquiesce to this system of seeing somebody as an authority above us, as if it was vested from God. And of course, they do claim that. Now, it's not just the banksters. When we bring the first lot of banksters down, and by the way, when what is known as Middle England realises the extent of what they've been propagating through their compliance to the system and their own enslavement to fraudulent debt, this will all be over very peacefully and very quickly. Things will just change all of a sudden. There are already enough of us that have woken up to this. You know, we've proven our arguments. That's why we always win administratively. They can only win if they get us in a court. They can only win there. So, what do? If the court system won't give us justice? That is our birthright under the Constitution. What do? To no man, meaning no man or woman, will we deny right or access to justice. That's it. They're not allowed to do it, and they're doing it every time for their own vested interests. Now, when we convene a grand jury, if we do, we're not going to stop with the banking fraud. We're going to take on the issue of whether or not the Queen has the right to wage these illegal wars in the name of the people of this country. We're going to take on whether or not the Crown agencies have the right to delegate the authority to the Civil Aviation Authority to poison the air. The same goes for the water poisoners. The same goes for the DVLA, for completely obscuring the fact that you have a free right to travel in a conveyance of your choice, regardless of what anyone says. But nobody, virtually, is able to do that because of this system of control they've imposed. Now, I'm not saying that you should all run out and deregister your cars, because you will have a terrible time. They're incredibly aggressive when you try and do that. What I am saying is, that is maybe something that will happen organically once we achieve the big targets. Because, let's be under no illusions here, this is a peaceful war that is being waged. We are giving back to our oppressors what they never give to us. We are giving them unconditional love and compassion and understanding, for the very reason that if we don't rise above the oppression and the suffering that has been caused, that has enveloped so many billions of people's lives because of the actions of a tiny minority, if we do not rise above those actions and give them what they would never give us, we perpetuate the same problem in a different form. So, what I'm suggesting is, we have now, let's call this line down here, I'm drawing a line. Okay? On this side, we have everything that already is within, I'm going to have to put this down here, everything that already is within the society that was imposed upon us. And on the other side of the line, there's me, the grantor and missionary for the Universal Trust of the Universal Community of Self-Realization, which is a trust without any boundaries. Now, we also have a trustee of the trust sitting there, Michael Evelment, who's going to be talking at 5:30, and there are another 3 trustees in other places in the country currently. And what we have done is set in motion a plan to acquire a large piece of land via the use of promissory notes, depositing them in a private bank account, creating their own credit, in exactly the same way the banks do. And this is what high net worth individuals with £2 million worth of provable assets can do at any private bank. And that's how they keep it a secret. And what we have done is we have said that what we're going to do within our community, when we attract the beneficiaries, is we are going to have a system of an exchange of energy. Every beneficiary to the community trust, they pledge their sweat equity, whatever that comprises of, into the trust for the benefit of everybody, and they get everything within the trust for free. Now, within that trust, every single beneficiary who consents gets every right that the grantor of the trust, that's Michael Bernicia, has granted into trust from the rights that I claimed from the Queen. I've done it with my own family as well. So that means that everybody over here, currently encumbered by debt and fear, can step out of that and come over here simply by becoming a beneficiary, and they have the protection of the trust, and they also enter a new jurisdiction. This is a jurisdiction where only natural law applies. My rights end where yours begin. If they, in the outside society, have got any problems with us, they've got to provide evidence of jurisdiction. This community here has already been declared as a community. The Queen. The Queen, who is pretty much the head of state of the vast majority of the planet, and probably secret owner of the vast majority of the land and the sea. Now, so what do? We go into their jurisdiction and say, okay, any false claims against this community, and we're going to come after you with a countersuit, and this is what it's going to charge, that we're going to charge you. This is the fee schedule for this is our administration charge for you wanting us to do business with you, because we don't want anything to do with you. We are over here living peacefully under natural law, and there isn't anything under international law that prevents us from doing that. In fact, under international law, the rights to do such a thing are enshrined. They can't deny them. And there's umpteen pieces of case law in support of that. Now, so, what does that mean? What does that? Well, that means that everything that I did over here, successfully, I've taken into here, and I'm giving to all the beneficiaries for free. They don't have to go through the process, and yet they have the same rights. So what I'm saying is that if I have tax exemption, and I'm over here. All everyone's got to do to be tax exempt is move over here where I am. You see what I mean? And you don't even have to do the same things as me. What I'm saying is, we're taking all of these, adding some more, taking away the restrictions of a government. We're saying this is an autonomous community, run by the community, with no leaders, and that wouldn't be chaos. It would be freedom. We all respect each other's rights, and we live by simple principles. We all love everybody and everything unconditionally, and that's it. You know, we don't harm anyone, we don't create any injury, harm, or loss. And we don't seek to profit from our enterprises. We don't seek to profit. Now, here's the thing. This community, now you would think that what we'd have to do to set it up would be work for years and years and years to find the money to acquire a piece of land and then get planning permission to build sustainably and all these things. We don't. Over here, no, this is private land. This is land belonging to a separate state. So, you have no right to meddle. That would be a breach of international law. And it would be irrebuttable. So, in essence, what I'm saying here is, if each of our communities was autonomous, run under certain natural law principles, this template for a community to exist could be applied anywhere on the planet. Because what we've also come up with is something called a cooperative trade network, and I'm going to be moving on to talk about all of this. I said I wouldn't digress into that, but it's very applicable because we're making sure that everyone automatically has the rights and knows that they can't have them taken away from them, whereas here no one knows what their rights are until the state tells them what their rights are, and generally that means they haven't got any. Generally. So, after we take on the banks, after we take on the government for the wars, we're going to take on the crown on the theft of these lands. Another representative action. I wonder how many people are aware of the work of an ancient historian from Wales called Alan Wilson? Right. Well, and I always forget, is it Baron Blackett, his partner?
Yeah.
Yes. Alan Wilson has proven that pretty much, again and again, for the last 25 years, that these lands were stolen by Anglo-Saxon marauders pretty much from 562 AD, or 563 AD, all the way through until William the Bastard, William the Conqueror. It took them that long, it took 500 years to wipe out the indigenous peoples of these isles, who were the Albic peoples. England, Scotland and Wales was Albion, and Britain, ancient Britain, included islands, the two islands. And this was a very ancient civilization that had migrated from Assyria, the Syrians, in 1500 BC. And then there was another migration 1,000 years later in 500 BC from what was known as Troy. And this was an incredibly advanced civilization with drains and like all of this stuff that they claim the Romans gave us were really here before in Albion. And then in 563 AD, according to all archaeological records that are sustainable records and not just put there to confuse people, it's proven that a comet struck the Earth, it bounced off Britain, and it hit Bolivia, and it caused absolute devastation, and it wiped out the entire islands. It wiped out everything. There was no way to grow on these islands for a period which is estimated to be between 7 and 11 years, depending on where you were in the country, and everything was wiped out. The population at the time that the comet hit, were, again, the records show, it was estimated to be in the region of 10 million. Anyone who tried to invade was very quickly beaten back. You know, if anyone tried to impose any kind of international agenda on Britain, it was repelled immediately. They were a fearsome tribe in defence of their ancient rights and holding the land in perpetual trust for the benefit of the people. There were no kings who were sovereign rulers. There were rexes who, like King Arthur, who stepped in to solve problems on behalf of the people. If an army needed to be raised, he would lead them, and he would lead them to victory, and he was paid for doing this. But the rexes preceding him, they were arbiters in common law courts. Any problem that arose, they just convened a common law court in the community, and they didn't go until it was sorted out. Now, all these things being true, if indeed this isn't just my interpretation of history, if all of this is true, that means that from the time the comet struck for 500 years, the Vatican funded genocide of the indigenous peoples of these lands, and the theft of the lands by the Crown, what is now the Crown, took place. And the claim that the Crown has against these lands is the one that they say dates back to the time of William the Conqueror. So all of the lands that were claimed by William, that had been claimed over that 500-year period, following the slaughter of the indigenous, all those lands were committed in writing, in a document, to be the lands of the Crown. Nobody has ever put in a successful claim against that. Nobody. Because for 250 years, the Crown, through Oxbridge stooges, has spun a web of deceit to fool us on our real history, which is so comprehensive, and the established powers stamp on most people who try to get this information out there. Go and look it up yourself. Look up information about the comet. You will see there's evidence. In Scotland, there's an archaeological dig which the state have refused to fund, and they refuse to give any of the usual benefits and privileges to, so that the guys have had to do it themselves, the research, and they've gone and they've proven that either there was a really bad nuclear war involving Britain at that time, at that exact time, 563 AD, or a comet struck the Earth. And they've got sites like this all over the country, and in Bolivia. So you see, the fact that none of us know this, none of us are taught this, well, that says everything. When you find out, or rather my interpretation of the grand cycle is that the grand cycle comprises of two elliptical solar arcs of time. And at the end of the descent of the universe, in Kali Yuga, at the last moment, the darkest moment of Kali Yuga, which is known in Vedic terms as the Dark Ages, at the darkest point, the comet struck, and the deception was complete. And the rest of the 12,000 years is our ascent as consciousness, picking up the information that has already been lost. It's always there. It's eternal. We just have to tune into it. If ever you have a problem, tune into the universe and ask it to provide you with the solution. Ask the right questions. It provides you with the right answers. But of course we're taught separation and duality, that we can't do this, that we're helpless without the help of the state. No, we're helpless within the state's care. And that's the way it was supposed to be. And the reason why the time is now is because all over the planet they're wiping people out slowly, with the chemicals in the air, with the chemicals in the water, with the poisons on the food, taking away the right to grow food on your own land. You know, they're making everything good for you illegal so they can keep it for themselves and remain immune to all the diseases and viruses that they're spreading. Therefore, now is the moment for everybody to stand up and just do what they can do. Whatever it is. Anybody who is interested in taking part in the representative actions against the mortgage companies, there's a meeting in Nottingham on the 6th of August. Go to thinkfreeforums.uk.co.uk. Yeah. .org. thinkfreeforums.uk.org. And you will see in the events section the information, and the address of the venue will be given at the very last minute. Because what we're talking about here, we're talking about all of the mortgagors coming together and agreeing that they have a common issue, and that common issue is that none of them have an enforceable contract. And they don't even have to sign up to the actions, but everybody can lend their support in any way they can, and the more people that sign up to them, the more clout we're going to have. And it isn't going to end there. So we're standing up to the powers that be, or think they be. We're standing up and saying, okay, you won't provide the remedy, so we're doing what Lord Denning predicted. We're creating it for ourselves, under real common law. Not what you say is common law, which is just statute. Because it's the common practice of applying statute. Okay, does anyone have any questions about anything that I've said so far?
Could you tell us a little bit more about promissory notes? What are they and their application?
Yes, okay. A promissory note. Does anyone have a banknote handy? Oh no, I have. Unusually enough. Okay. Apart from the usual Masonic symbols and the Queen's head, so you know you've always got the Queen somewhere near you. Her energy, because the picture's on there. That's done for a reason. You know. What it's also got on there is Bank of England. Underneath, I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of £10. It doesn't say I promise to pay the bearer on demand £10 worth of gold or silver or anything else. If you go to the Bank of England and say I want to cash this in, they give you another one of these. So what does that tell you about these? Yes, but what are these accepted as? They're accepted as money, which is promissory notes. Promissory notes predates currency. Promissory notes were accepted between people who were trading as payments way before any statutes recognised promissory notes. It's the ancient custom of merchants, which is recognised in the Bills of Exchange Act 1882. You can't change that. They've acknowledged it in law many times. You can't change that. But what they've hidden from view is the fact that anybody can take a piece of paper and write on there, I, your name, promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of, whatever the sum is, sign it, date it, put the place it was made on there. That is an accepted negotiable instrument, fully negotiable. That is as good as money in Lord Denning's words. Therefore, you can pay any debt with that, and if they refuse payment repeatedly, you discharge the debt under the Bills of Exchange Act. Now, this is what we've done with the bank, but the courts are refusing to accept this. The bank refused to accept payment again and again and again. They just refused. Point blank. We've never heard of any such thing, paying promissory notes in. We've talked to the banking council, we've talked to the lawyers, we've talked to the head office. Nobody at the banking group has any idea what you're talking. Promissory notes? Honestly, seriously, you misunderstand the situation. I said, what about the HBOS Reorganisation Act 2006? And then they went silent, so we're not going to talk yet. That's it. They just shut up shop. No, talk to our lawyers. We're not going to talk about that because within the HBOS Group Reorganisation Act 2006, in the schedule, it makes it very plain, in great detail, exactly what the modern business of banking entails. And it's got every single type of instrument, including promissory notes of all sorts, including every application of promissory notes, from the deposit, holding as trustee, investment, payment, satisfying liabilities. It's all in there. And I quote all of this in court, and you know what the court does? They pretend that nothing happened. That I never said such a thing. They refuse to talk about it as an issue. Said, no, the bank said in the contract, which isn't signed and they're saying it is, the bank said in the contract it had to be made in cleared funds. The definition of cleared funds is instruments that are not contingent upon money resting or residing in a separate account, or assets to back up the promise. So what we're saying is, they're saying it can only be in cleared funds, which is banknotes, when banknotes are exactly the same thing as promissory notes. And Denning said it. So
they
the court,
don't even give you banknotes, they give you money of account, which is just
it's not true. It's not true. It's a big misunderstanding, in my opinion. And I'll tell you why. Because you're talking about the invisible side of the accounting ledger. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about they use these as an instrument to create credit, and they don't let us do it.
Right.
Because it's the payment.
Yeah.
It just is. And that's why. Right, okay. A friend of ours went to a bank 3 or 4 weeks ago, Steve, went to a bank and he very charmingly got the cashier to tell him that the payment slips that you fill out with every single deposit are kept for 7 years in the vault of the bank, and then they're bundled up and they're deposited in a securities account because they have value. And he said, what value do they have? He says, well, I don't really know, but I would imagine they have the value of the payment, or the deposit. But don't tell anyone that I said that. So this is what they do. All of those instruments have value because the banks want to take value from everything. And they want our signature on it. So you signed it. And you gave it to us. Thank you. And we keep doing it. The remittance slips on the bottom of any of your bills, they're checks. Look at them. They comply as a check in every sense. The only difference is they have 2 banks' addresses on there, and they have the other party's address on there. What does that mean? Well, it means that they can deposit it in their account or in your account, in their name or in yours if you do nothing with it. Or worse, You sign it and give it back to them. You've paid them twice. Thank you very much. And the reason we know this, because not just one, not just a few, but maybe a dozen to 15 people in this country have successfully paid utility bills and water bills by filling out that remittance slip as a cheque and sending a notice of payment saying, please deposit, please credit the account accordingly. Payment enclosed. And you sign it as a cheque, you cross out their name, and you date it.
Can you say it on a microphone once more?
This cannot be considered legal advice under any circumstances. However, I do have first-hand knowledge and second-hand knowledge of people signing the remittance slip on the bottom of electricity and water bills as a cheque, sending it back with a notice of payment saying, please find and close the payment and credit the account accordingly. The account is the account number on your bill, and they're doing it, or they're starting to do it. There's also, can I put this down now? It's okay. They've all, I'll speak louder. They've also done this, or certain individuals have had remedy. A guy called Santa from Manchester has had remedy, creating his own international bill of exchange to make a payment to a utility company. And first of all, they said, no way, this is just nonsense. This is just a piece of paper. They gave it to the legal team. The legal team must have done a search on the internet for once. And they went on and they saw that, no, this actually does seem to be like a valid payment. In fact, it's quite a sexy payment. It has extra value because it's an international bill of exchange. It can be accepted anywhere. It can be traded anywhere. So let's accept it. And it is. So they rang up and said, oh, we reconsidered this. Could you send it back to us? So,
do you operate a motorised conveyance?
Yes, I do, but it's not in my name. And,
Sorry, Michael, could you repeat the question first? Just so I can pick up the
yes. John was asking if I drove around in a conveyance, and I do. And I've had issues with the DVLA. I successfully managed to refuse to comply with an invisible court order ordering me to return my straw man's driving licence to be endorsed for a speeding fine that I had discharged in the magistrate's court without even turning up. So I said, well, where's the court order? And he said, oh, yeah, there is one, but they couldn't produce it. And there was a year's worth of administrative process it took, but in the end they said, your licence is cancelled, you can't drive. Well, I think you'll find that I'm not driving anyway. If I have in my possession a licence for production upon that necessity arising, that's completely different to me having any liability to the DVLA. If I cause any harm, injury, loss or damage, I'm covered. Any injury that I cause is covered by a bond. My bond. I bond anybody. I write a promissory note for anybody within the trust who can prove that they have a real debt that needs extinguishing. Otherwise it's going to cause suffering. I can do that now. It's in the trust deed. It's in my claim of right. I already have the authority to do this. Everybody does, but only if they apply certain principles to your life. You cannot expect other people to solve your problems. And that means we cannot expect any intervention from any source. We have to all collectively decide, well, you know what, even if I'm just going to make a tiny bit of difference, whether it's refusing to fill out a census form or refusing to pay any tax to the illegal wars, making a declaration stating your intent and peaceful understanding of the situation, which is anybody has the right to stand up to a power that is abusing that power and say, no more, not in my name, I'm not financing that, I'm not acquiescing to that, I'm not complicitly taking part in that anymore. And if we don't, it'll continue, it'll get worse. We can solve it. And the incredibly positive news is that from the start of my learning curve, and I would imagine it was about the same time as you, John, 2008, when did you really start looking?
Yeah, 2007.
Into the freemen concepts and the philosophies. Well, when we were taking a look at it for the first time, there was nothing here. There was only the outstanding work of Robert Menard in Canada. He really inspired so many people. If you haven't seen his work, check it out. It doesn't all apply here, a lot of it doesn't, but what he does is he helps people go and look for themselves. He inspires so many to do it, and he does it in his own inimitable fashion. And it is very inspiring to watch. Robert Menard, the freeman on the land, commonly known as Robert Menard. Thinkfree.ca is his website. Yeah.
I have a question. I'm completely blown away by what you're saying. I'm totally in support, but I've got a few little things coming up in my head that I want to voice.
Good.
And the first thing is not paying road tax. So I drive. I don't like how it's drawn up and stuff, but I still pay it. And my point is, if we don't pay road tax, then we pay for road tax. And I'm very surprised to what you were saying when you talked about council tax yesterday. It's like, yeah, I don't want to pay council tax, but these people take our rubbish. Admittedly, yeah, we can step out of society and sort out our own rubbish in a more sensible way. But the point is that at the moment, these things that we're paying in terms of road tax and council tax and to some degree taxes, there is a point, albeit a bit fucked up, but you know.
Yeah, very good points. Very good points. I'll address them now. Okay, you want to turn that off? Might be. Is that possible? Yeah. Okay. First things first. The road tax is an unlawful levy. It doesn't pay for the roads. It's more revenue for the Crown. That the roads are taken care of when everything else has been done. It's the last thing that they look to do. I don't know exactly where the finance comes from. What I'm talking about is you declare your own home private property and you have the responsibility to take care of it. Like you say, I will pay for any service or goods that I genuinely receive or enjoy. I have absolutely no problem with that, but I'm not paying for my existence on this planet anymore. If I'm swapping something for something, I got no problem. Like promissory note for some goods or services, no problem. If the council want to carry on fixing the roads, I'm more than willing to pay with a negotiable instrument. If they can provide me evidence that the money is being spent on that. And they can't. They can't. Look at what happened 3 years ago. Look at the credit crunch. Is it 2 years ago, 3? Seems so long. The credit crunch. They were claiming that the banks were too big to fail, so they bailed them out. And when the banks were in that position, they made a lot of heavy calls on the state agencies that they had accounts for. The councils, even though they're just instruments of the Crown, like all the other agencies, they suffered really, really badly on account of the fact that their treasurers had been earmarking the majority of funds for investment to make profit, because they're all municipal corporations. So, if the councils can demonstrate that they are not investing in failing Icelandic banks or the military-industrial complex, and that they are actually providing the service that they claim they are, I've got absolutely no problem if I decide that I want a business arrangement with the council. Otherwise, I'll fix the road outside my house, I'll put lighting up or take it down if I don't want it, and I will say who can park outside my home.
I mean, I don't know if this is correct or not, but I have one friend who said, oh, all these people on benefits, so on and so on, I'm paying for my own taxes, they should go and get a job. But then another friend said to me at the same time, said, oh, well, actually the money that people pay from their taxes, in fact, go for servicing the war in Iraq and Afghanistan and paying off the previous wars, like, for example, the Napoleon War and debts to America was paid off, the Napoleon War a few years ago. In fact, they said, that the road tax and the council tax goes towards paying benefits and whatever is left. And then she recently told me about a couple of months ago that apparently Britain sold 2 million of birth certificates to America for loan against the Iraq war. I don't know how true is that.
There are lots of allegations like that out there, and who knows whether
they
or not
trade
they're
them
true.
for.
What they're trading in is the sweat equity. It's the future labour when they do that. They do it, definitely. I don't know if they did it in that particular case. But you see, the question of work, let's just examine that. How many people do you know who are doing something that dwells in their heart, with their lives? Something that they should be doing. And they're sharing it with their community and they can't wait to do it. They're so happy to do it. They don't need. They would do it for nothing. They would do it for, how many people do you know who are doing that? How many people in this room are doing that? That's wonderful. I give you a round of applause. Give yourself a round of applause. How many people do you know who are doing that?
Only the other guys.
Right, this is it. And how many of the people around you are questioning what you're doing, questioning your sanity for choosing this path? This is it. That's why we've got to lead by example. We've got to be compassionate. We've got to understand and remember what it was like to lie hidden under the duvet waiting for the brown envelopes to hit the mat. Every morning. Every morning. And then when I started racing down the stairs because I couldn't wait to see what hilarity was enclosed in one of those envelopes, it disappeared. Gone. Didn't take very long either. It's a commitment to lose your fears. Fears of everything. Fears of what might happen if you don't comply. Fears of what might happen if you say, you know what, I reckon it's better over here. And I'm going to invite everybody over here, and as long as they comply with natural law, we got no problems. We're setting up the prototype community, which I'm going to be talking about at 4:30, same place. So I won't go into the rest of the details about that, but I can tell you that there is remedy out there if you're willing to take responsibility for every single part of your existence. For everything.
Is this going to be like a virtual state where you can join it if you live somewhere else, or does it mean you have to actually live in the same state that you're setting up?
This is the beauty of it. The cooperative trade network can work in virtual reality as well. The only cost that would be involved is delivery of all the goods and services. So if you're living within a community, the delivery is inexpensive and it's easy. We can set it up. But we're setting up individual communities all over the place to do this. And so what one community has, if they produce, let's say, excess hemp, and another community has a hemp producing station of some description, making medicinal products that are curing cancer and all kinds of heart problems, and the list is endless. If, let's just say that there's a mutual benefit in, right, we give you the hemp, you give us the medicine. You see what I mean? And but it's in similar ways, if one community has an abundance of people who know how to set up an underground heating system, and other communities don't, well, they can go around the other communities doing that for those communities, and those communities will offer something in return, like that, something for something else. No money, no transactions of any kind, and yet the trust already has set up, at least we have agreed the setup of a permanent credit facility where anybody within the trust, all the beneficiaries who need to get rid of any debt in the other society over there, they can put the credit in our account, and we can't do anything with it except hold it, nothing else at all. It's written in stone, and they get to pay off that debt out there, which means they've got nothing on that side anymore, trying to interfere with what's going on over here. Now, what do you think the moneyed aristocracy do when they don't want to comply with statutes? Lord Armstrong, one of the lords in the north, Lord Armstrong, massive landowner, he declared to the Privy Council that he didn't want to be party to a few statutes involving property. So they're not applicable to his land under statute. Well, what does that tell you about statutes? I've read umpteen bank documents where they say the Contracts Rights of Third Parties Act doesn't apply in this case. Really? Does that mean if I agree, it doesn't? Because you've got the agreement of the parties. All right. So if we say we're not going to consent to any of that, and here's my claim of right, proving that I revoke my consent to be governed, and here are the mailing documents which prove that you acquiesce to it. So prove that you have a case. Prove that you have jurisdiction. They don't. How do you think new countries, new nations, new communities have ever evolved?
Michael, I have to wrap it up. Sorry.
By freeing themselves from the imposed obligations of the moneyed aristocracy who would control everything and everyone. Hopefully I'll see you at 4:30. Thank you very much.